All right, guys, what's up? We're live again, chilling for general's meeting. How you guys doing this morning? We were kind of talking a little bit offline, so sorry about the delay, but here we are. So what's been happening this week, man? I guess the big trending thing was that whole Dylan Mulvaney, Bud Light, Nike sort of thing. Like, is it so bizarre that these big brands, these massive brands like Anheuser-Busch and Nike, like clothing brands, are now obsessed with aligning themselves with biological males that are pretending to be women? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Is it surprising? No. I don't know.
I'm
why
actually surprised, to be honest with you. I'm like, why are they doing this?
Well, the same reason any big company is doing it. The same reason every June any company, at least here in the U.S. within the Fortune 500 or greater, is changing their logo to rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
They
don't do that in Saudi Arabia, though. Like, I remember they did a comparison in June, like BMW, Boston, and BMW, Saudi Arabia, and the ones in the Middle East stay the same, right? They go for the trending thing, don't they?
Well, because it's no longer about money. It's about staying in power, and it's about executives at these companies that want to continue to stay in their jobs and continue making money. They have to pacify the woke crowd. So, if they don't,
or is it like offshoot people in the marketing department that have way too much power? That's what I'm wondering.
It's definitely part of it. It's definitely this whole diversity and inclusion that's just become an entire department now, and now it's become as important as marketing and or sales. But it's all of that. It's it's the risk of, I can't remember, it was, I believe it, I can't remember which, I think it was Coors a few years ago. You guys remember those commercials where they ran those in the Super Bowl? It was like, it was a song like "I Love Twins" or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. Somebody might be able to pull that clip. But that's how far we've come.
We've gone like Coors Light, like is in the beer company.
They ran a commercial, yeah, and it was like during the Super Bowl, and it was this guy singing like a song, and it was like, I can't remember exactly how the words went, but basically he was talking about all this manly stuff. And at the end, it was like, "Oh, and I love two blonde twins," and that's where we went from. You may be able to find it on a quick clip, but we've gone from that to now we're about a biological man parading as a woman in a bathtub. Look, like, who cares? I don't drink beer much anyway. Bud Light is swill. It's garbage beer anyway. But
I think I found the clip, so I'll put it up on the screen, but I'm not going to run the audio.
Yeah.
Because you usually get in trouble with stuff like that. But let me.
So it's all that rolled into one. It's no longer about money, in my opinion, because the people that are fighting for this kind of stuff, the people that are championing for all, they're not buying beer anyway. Like, the people that are buying Bud Light are not these people.
Yeah.
So it's not even their target market.
So I'll just play it while Moff's talking, but I mean, you can clearly see, what it is that, he's talking about here. It's basically TAP, they used to call this TAP when I was, younger. It stands for tits, ass, and poon, right? And, this is where they've, taken it now. It's now gone to, a place where you've got some dude that thinks he's a chick parading around. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I get that there's people that are, that might feel like, I'm going to use feel like, quotations, because you guys should know how I feel about that by now. But there's people that feel like that they should be something else, that they should identify as a Black Hawk helicopter, a freaking mole mouse, a woman, whatever it happens to be. And historically, that's always been a very, very small percentage of the population, probably less than 1%. I don't think there's any other animal in like planet Earth that goes to the lengths of trying to identify with something completely different like humans do. And that's fine. I don't care. I'm a libertarian, do whatever you want. But why is it being crammed down our throat now everywhere, now inclusive of marketing companies? I already know that I'm not giving these people money, right? Like, Gillette will never see a dime from me. Nike, I'm done with. I don't drink beer anyway, so screw that shit, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but But it's not about doing whatever you want, right? Because that's where we get dangerous. Like that's when you put people that are marginal and at risk actually at more risk. This is a conversation I've had with people actually over the last few weeks, where the hot thing now is to separate sex and gender. Well, okay, then fine. But let's just say if gender is the only thing, if you can identify however you want, if we can cut the link between biological sex and gender, and if that's fine, but how we classify things like sports and locker rooms and bathrooms and spaces and jails and prisons, we classify those things by gender, not sex. Mm-hmm. So when somebody who gets convicted for assault against women, sexual assault against women, and then during lockup, they get to say, actually, I identify as a woman, so now I get to go to a woman's prison and then assault more women. It's not about just do whatever you want.
You're getting exactly what you wanted.
Just let me just chime in here for a second. So, first of all, like, I'm not a helicopter, but I do identify as the Black Hawk for sure. So.
Well, guys,
did you say Black Hawk or Black Hawk?
Oh, Black Hawk, of course, Black Hawk. I think there's two things in my opinion that are going on. So first of all, like these companies, like they have nothing to lose, though. Okay, like the idea of boycotts doesn't really work because these companies own so many brands that if you like drinking beer, you're going to be drinking one of their products, no doubt, though. So they don't really have anything to lose. Like, and in my opinion, it is about money. Like these companies have marketing departments that have like just hundreds of people in it that like they know what they're doing. They run the numbers. They know how much they're going to lose if they run these campaigns.
Actually, that's not true because I just looked it up here. Gillette lost 15% quarterly revenue from that toxic masculinity ad. So boycotts to some degree do affect their bottom line. And when you're a publicly traded company, you have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders. So technically, at the end of the day, they do have some effect.
Okay, sure. But I guess kind of the second thing is that the reason why you're seeing all this nonsense is because like they're just trying to market, like I think like on average, we know that women make 77 cents on the dollar, on average, if we take all the professions, blah, blah, blah. Right. They just dominate the market. They completely dominate the market. Something like, I don't want to say the exact number, but the vast majority of purchases are controlled by women. So even
73%.
Yeah. So even if you're buying like a car, like the woman gets a say. Like you're not buying the Mustang, you're buying the SUV or you're buying the minivan, right? Because they control, like you said, 70-something% of the purchases. So they want to cater to the women in order to get those dollars. Like men don't really care about that kind of stuff. Like even the stuff that men spend money on, its marketing doesn't really affect that as much. Like for instance, like McLaren doesn't have to advertise their cars, right? Their cars are high in demand, and men buy stuff like that, which marketing doesn't really affect it as much. And whereas women, they want to feel inclusive, they want to do all that. So, like with this campaign, they're just trying to market to women. So
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Mr. Canadian, because Jesse Kelly, he's a political pundit in DC. He said the biggest, most adherent demographic to this current insane woke Marxism gender stuff is the white liberal suburban woman. And she's the equivalent of like the, Mao's, pajama wearing people back in the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Peterson also alluded to it when he said, some, and if you look at it, like I got black friends that live in the hood. They don't have this problem because they're too busy trying to keep their kids safe and put food on the table. And if you look at any of the proponents of this stuff, it's generally affluent white liberal women. And Jordan Peterson had one example. He said, the chances of this woman having a transgender and a gay child under 10 is 5 million to 1.
Yeah.
And I saw someone on Twitter say that the Coach handbag has been replaced by the transgender child now.
Yeah, dude, that is seriously profound. That is very astute. Yeah. Yeah. It's
so that's where it's coming from. And it's just what our buddy just said there. That's marketers target the marketers and advertisers target women. They get them emotionally. And if you saw that undercover real estate thing in New York from a couple of years ago, where this lady pretended to be a billionaire's wife looking for a $200 million pad in New York, she found out that when dudes were getting sold these places, they were told about the value of the investment. But every time she went along, it was like, imagine your kids here, imagine this, imagine that. The realtors were selling her imagination and emotion. And that's what they've, there's affluent white suburban women in the Western world who think they're the next incarnation of Gandhi and Martin Luther King because they want, Tammy to get her breast chopped off when she's 12.
Yeah, it's it's so bizarre because I saw this meme a couple of weeks ago and I've been thinking about it a lot because I get, like anybody else out there that has a presence, you're always going to get hate. And I always get hate from these like young nerds. They'll call you names like boomer or something like that. And it's like, dude, like your generation this and your generation that. It's like, yeah, at least my generation didn't cut off its dick. Got a mic, I'd drop it right now, but this one's affected over here. But seriously, it's like the way that these young people are responding to popular culture. I get it, grow your hair long, get a tattoo, listen to music that offends your parents. All right, cool. But now we're seeing, did you guys see that clip that went around on Dr. Phil with the father and came out dressed as a woman? Did you guys see that? He's bawling. Like we were talking about this last week at the Heroes Expedition. If you had a son that decided that he didn't want to be a man, he didn't want to, pass on, his DNA and carry on the family name and wanted to transition to whatever, a helicopter, a woman, a cat, it doesn't matter. Like that would be devastating for most fathers, I think. 50, you've got a son. How would you respond to something like that?
Yeah, it would be, it'd be devastating. And look, there's a member of our group and, one of his sons is gay. And he said his gay son is even getting sick of all the tranny stuff. He said he's getting thoroughly sick of it. But yeah, I think all dads would be, but again, I think it's nature versus nurture. Okay. It's a lot like, why is this stuff exploding? Why is it exploding? And it's all down to marketing and letting, a gynocentric society dictate everything.
It's a social contagion is what it is, right? I mean, like there was that segment on Bill Maher a few months back where they're showing the amount of LGBTQIA plus ampersand divide sign people since the 60s, and then every generations it's just skyrocketed.
And here's the thing as well that this generation doesn't realize. This generation doesn't realize that marketers have figured out that they have disposable income. Okay, and that's the only, like, if let's say if fascism came into, became popular tomorrow morning, if it was, all over the country, whatever, all of these woke corporations would then be signaling fascism and how great they loved fascism. The woke people don't realize that these corporations are only after their dollar and they're only virtue signaling for their dollar. They don't give a crap about the cause. It's just the in thing at the moment that they're jumping on board with.
Yeah. The big problem is that CEOs and leaders of big corporation whose, again, objective is shareholder profit, growing the business, making money. If you're a publicly traded company, that's what your job is. Giving the marketing team too much free reign. Like you give somebody enough rope that's dumb, they're going to end up hanging themselves, and they're hanging the business, they're hanging the profits for the business, catering to a very tiny percentage of it. I think when you're marketing for a big brand, and I'm saying this, from the perspective of somebody that's been a business owner, still is a business owner, has employed lots and lots of people, I think you have to look broadly at who your customers are and why they buy your stuff and cater to that. And if you do things that piss them off, that are offensive to them, like athletes wearing the swoosh, the Nike. And it's funny because there's a book called Shoe Dog out there, right? Which is basically the Nike story. And if you go through Shoe Dog and then you see what they're doing today, it's like, hang on a second. does the guy that was being quoted in this book know what his marketing team is doing today? Is there any connection, or is it just that corporations have just gotten so big and stupid? They just, you go do whatever you want to do, and you do whatever you want to do. And it's like HR is doing this and marketing is doing this. And it's like, and then all of a sudden the guys in the production facilities are going, hey, we got lots of inventory that's stockpiling. What are we supposed to do with it? Nobody's buying shit. Anyway, let me grab these super chats that popped up in here before they disappear. Sages, anyway, 20-year-old lost brother due to different visions, spoke money 247 and ignore brotherhood, which drove him to leave. I want to make money with him and level up game and status. We both add value. What is that? Is that code for something? Do you guys understand what he's saying here?
No idea.
I think he's saying that he has a brother, and he ignored his brother in order to make money, and then his brother left, but he wants to make money with his brother. They both add value. What's the solution?
I don't know if that translates. I'll tell you what, said. Just call in on Monday night on the Unplugged Alpha show. That's more of a conversation. It doesn't make a lot of sense either when I read it out. I mean, guys, before you submit a super chat that you want read out, read it out yourself and make sure that it's coherent. Okay. Scott says it's a myth that women make less money for the same work. Yeah, when
everybody knows this.
Yeah, like when we were talking about
on average.
Yeah. Thinking men do higher risk in hands, dirty work. Women take maternity leave, less leadership roles, lower paying, nurturing oriented, shorter hours, less dangerous work. Like there's no push from feminists to get more women on oil rigs and on roofs doing roofing jobs, but there's a push, from these women to get equal pay for equal work. Okay, well, when you're doing equal work, you'll get equal pay. I don't know a single organization out there today that pays a woman and a man differently for the exact same job. Women, you'll get paid differently for different jobs. Don't think that running a daycare center and hurting 3-year-old kids is as difficult as working on an oil rig, because it's not. It's totally different. Or doing roofing work in the summertime, it's not. It's totally different, right? So your hour of work versus somebody else's hour of work, that's like a lawyer saying, that brain surgeon over there should be paid the same hourly rate as me as a junior lawyer. Like, why am I not being paid the same as them? It's totally different work. It's different work.
I have an example here.
Yeah.
From back when I had like 30, 35 employees. There are two people, man and woman, can do the same job but differently. Like if their job is not on a fixed rate and they have like a commission, or they get paid proportional to their results, then again, the same job can produce different income, but for obvious reasons, right? It's not something that needs to be explained a lot. This thing, like you guys are talking about this like it's still happening, and I don't see any type of experience or place where men and women get paid different wages for the same job. Like, for example, a flat job like salesperson in a bookstore. They work the same hours, they get the same pay. So fighting against this and this whole crusade against men getting better positions or getting paid better because they have more interest in that job, because they don't take 4 years out of their life, out of their 20-year career to raise a child. Because of all of these things that women do by choice, again, is not the men's fault.
There's actually lots of scenarios which feminists never complain about, where women are getting paid much more than men doing the exact same job. I did a podcast with Danica Patrick a couple of weeks ago. It hasn't been published on her channel yet. It'll probably be out soon. But one of the things she said to me is, even as a race car driver, she got paid a lot more than what men got paid to drive the same car. And quite simply, that makes sense, right? Because if
she lost every race, she won one race her entire career.
Yeah, she wasn't. Yeah, she wasn't on the podium, but because
garbage.
She's a pretty girl that will draw eyeballs into the sport, and every other person that's driving the car
dated
is
Aaron
the dude.
Rodgers.
Yeah, of course you're going to pay a girl more to keep doing that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not just in race car driving. It happens in other professions as well. it is what it is. Like if you ask Sterling Cooper, he'll tell you that women got paid more in his profession than what the men did, right? So anyway, we're kind of beating a dead horse over here. I want to move on to something else that popped up in my timeline this week that I think is relevant. And we're going to be talking about the women again, which is 50's favorite topic. Let me put it up on the screen because this is some biblical level of brattiness. I mean, I've seen a lot of bratty stuff. It looks like this girl is trying to do a story or some kind of social media post. Well, I'll just play it. Like you guys can see this. Let me know if the audio doesn't play when I put this up on the screen, but I think it's set to play. So just have a listen to this.
The egg was not on the salmon.
So can I please get a new one? I don't want to eat it.
Leave already? Why are you even here?
You're joking, right? I can't make this up.
Why is the egg not on the salmon?
You guys can see clearly that I'm not making this up. Like, I can't make this up. Do you guys see this egg that's not on here?
Sorry, you've been too busy to entertain this. I'm sorry. You would have to ask me.
Okay, so I ordered a salmon benedict, which the egg clearly is supposed to be on, and then why is the sauce even on the side? Like, it's supposed to be on top. Can I just speak to the manager? Like, I'm so confused.
I am the manager.
I really don't know who hired you to be a manager, but I can clearly see that you are not, the right person for this job. I'm gonna try to put this on. If it like opens on the way, I'm literally gonna have to ask you to bring me in. Oh my god,
dude.
Can I get a new one?
Sorry, yeah.
Can I please get a new one with like a new plate? It's to be aesthetic for my story. Because I'm honestly not eating this until you bring me a new one.
Sorry.
I'm actually leaving. I'm so sorry. Like, I'll just leave. You can just serve this to the next person because I didn't eat it yet. But I really appreciate it.
So if you guys didn't catch that, that's a vocal tonation called vocal fry. Have you guys heard about vocal fry?
Just about up speak.
Is it up talking? Is it like talking totally like this? My name is
it's gotta be on the egg. Oh my god, it's ruining my story. Like this.
That's how dumbasses talk.
Essentially, this is the pinnacle. I've seen some bratty stuff show up in my timeline. Ian Miles Chong shared this. It says, learned helplessness, entitlement. What's even worse is that she chose to upload this. Well, she's one of these social media influencers that is like, oh, here's a picture of my breakfast. And because the egg isn't on top of the salmon and the Benedict sauce isn't poured all over it, it's not aesthetically pleasing enough for her. So she wants to talk to the manager with that vocal fry. I've seen some biblical levels of brattiness and entitlement, but I think this here tops it for the week. I need to get some kind of like, can somebody make me some kind of like graphic avatar that I can play at the end of endless like brattiness? It would just be epic.
Dude, I'm chopping some chives here at the moment, and I made salmon last night, so I think I should probably comment on this. But one of my all-time favorite chefs is a guy called Marco Pierre White, and he is famous for. Somebody complained about the meal in one of his restaurants in London years ago. So he came out and he threw them out of his restaurant.
Yeah.
He didn't say, oh, sorry. He just said, get out. Go on. He came out straight out with all the dirt all over him.
It's like get out of here. Tearing up. It's so funny.
You like cooking, right, 50?
Yeah,
no, that's what I'm doing at the moment. I just got chives in my garden. I'm chopping them up and I'm going to make eggs. I don't know, eggs with avocado or home cured bacon or something.
One of the hardest places, hardest jobs, and hardest environments you can be in is in a high-level restaurant kitchen.
I've worked in two. It's insane.
It's almost as bad as in a calling center, or a trading floor. It's like it gets to the level of like a Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah,
it's that kind of debauchery because it's long hours, it's hard, it's tough. There's little room for error. Like every single mistake that you do ruins the plate. Like you cannot do like it doesn't take 4 mistakes in a row to ruin a plate. It just takes one.
One. Yeah. And it's you know, I mean, I got trained by a guy up in Massachusetts, and you know, he the restaurant was quiet one night. He told me how to cook chicken, and that's, you know, it's always my gauge on a restaurant is how moist their chicken breast is. And he showed me how to cook it properly. And you know, he was weighing tables one night, and he came back in twice, and he said, "Compliments to the chef on the chicken. Looks like I taught you something." But it's an insanely intense environment, and when like that person has no idea what's going on in the back end of that kitchen with dishwashing, supplies, everything. It's mayhem back there trying to bring that to fruition. And you know, people have said to me in the past, "Oh, why don't you start a restaurant?" I said, "No, it's one of the hardest things. It's one of the hardest things to do." And I spoke to restaurant owners; they don't have any days off. They don't have a day off,
and the margins are almost always terrible.
Yeah,
that's not necessarily true.
Well, okay, for 90% of them it is.
They're razor thin
for the margins.
Well, unless it's steaks.
You can go to 30% EBITDA, which is basically, that translates into some other term in English finance, like the disposable income, disposable cash flow at the end of the year, right?
And that's not great. Even 30% margins are not good. That's not great for a business.
If you're doing $5 million in turnover,
for restaurants, the 30% margin is pretty good. I mean,
that's godlike.
They're not elf businesses. They're not easy, lucrative, or fun.
And
better business.
They're a lot of work.
One more thing that I'd like to add is that you have the heat from the entire store, from the entire shop, from everybody depending on you. Because if your food is not good enough, nobody gets a tip.
Yeah.
You know what's good about this though is there's a trend pushing back on these bratty, you know, girls. Like you see it a lot in the workout space. There's this guy Joey Swole. He does this on social media a lot, where he'll take these clips from women where they're complaining about somebody walking in front of their camera while they're doing the set, or somebody like off in the distance that might look at them for like a fleeting glance or offer to help them put the plates away. And then they make up some big deal about how this guy's a creep or whatever, or why isn't he here, or why is he walking in front of my camera? And there's a lot more pushback for that now. So I think society in general doesn't have a lot of tolerance for a lot of this bratty behavior. There's probably a small portion of their audience where they think that, oh, this will get me more views, or maybe this will get some reach because I'm lecturing them or I'm pulling the Karen. Nobody likes a Karen. Not even Karens like Karens. You know, you ask a Karen that's been a Karen that sees a Karen, they don't like it either.
Well, I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned too is that there was a little bit of like, who the fuck is this bitch from the waitress, right? You know, and she just wasn't having it though, right? You know, and she's like, get the manager. She's like, I am the manager. She wasn't, but I mean, she's just like, no, I'm not going to put up with your shit though. Fucking like, there's that saying, the customer is always right. She's like, no, I'm not putting up with your shit. Get the fuck out though, right? If you want to leave, get the fuck out then, right?
Well, when you think about the type of attention that these women averagely get, it's all about hard eyes, it's all about emojis, it's all about you're so amazing, it's all about how you're so attractive and I love your stuff. So anything that is, it doesn't even have to be to the contrary. Anything that is just not aligned with that worshiping and kissing of their feet, they perceive as a slight. Walking in front of a camera, it's not like the guy kicked it over. There are very few people that record their stuff at the gym. Most people don't do it at my gym. You know, I went to a gym in New York where people only did it because they were power lifters and they needed to look at their forms to make sure they were hitting depth so they could compete.
Right.
But there are very few people at my gym that it's busy all the time. Parking lot's always full, that really record themselves. So it's a very small modicum of people that are actually doing this. So to think that most people are constantly looking out for your tripod to make sure they don't walk in front of it, it's just asinine.
Did you guys see that comment that Dan Bilzerian put out earlier this week? Here, I'll put it up on the screen real quick. And for those of you that are listening instead of watching, offering $5K for the best video of someone soccer punting an idiot influencer's tripod camera while they're using it to film in the gym.
This is what the internet was made for. This is brilliant.
More of that.
Yeah. We should crowdfund that.
You don't even. I'll pay for it.
But listen, to our restaurant topic, and I think I've made this clear to all the guys. I'm done with the steak dinners at high-end restaurants because I've never gotten value for money. I don't mind paying it, but I'm convinced the steak dinner for a bunch of guys is a grift from the restaurant industry.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sick of paying 150 dinners for a piece of meat. I do steaks
daily now, 50, and
yeah,
you can go to Costco, get like the beef tenderloin, the big long one for a couple $100, chop it up into 15, 20 steaks. All you got to do is season it, fry it in a hot iron, cast iron skillet, done. It's perfect.
Well, the great thing about the filet is you can add flavor to it, but if you read it, like what's the other cut? It's not the filet. I keep forgetting it. I got a brain fart when it comes. No, it's a ribeye. The ribeye is the best. The ribeye is the best one. You do that in a cast iron skillet with some butter and some rosemary and thyme. And you know what, Rich? If you're doing that as well, take a clove of garlic and don't take the clove off. Just squash it and throw it in there, and it'll stop the garlic from burning, but it'll impart the flavor to the butter. You keep spooning it over it. I can go on for hours about steaks, but we've got a show to get on with.
Will that work with pork lard? Because I can't use dairy when I'm cooking steaks, so pork lard will work with that.
Dude, keep. I have bacon. I've got pork lard. Pork lard is the best thing for sautéing vegetables. Yeah. It is. I got 2 jars of it, and it's what I'm going to be using in a second here when I cook.
I've got a bit of a tip regarding not using any type of fat to cook your meat. I've got this thing which in Romania is called an air fryer. I don't know what the equivalent of that is.
No, we have air fryers here.
Yeah, we have air fryers
good? Like, are those good for you? Because I've heard different opinions. Like they're not good for you.
I hated them as a cook. Sorry, go ahead, Drag. Go ahead.
No, you
no, look, I broke down and got one, and it's great for when my kids aren't here, especially if you like to do fish. It is the best way to cook salmon or a fillet of fish. I get salmon steaks, fresh salmon, and you paste it in some Dijon mustard and some paprika. Throw it into that thing for 12 minutes, and it comes out restaurant quality.
What do you think about a sous vide 50? Sous
vide, it's an overkill for me. Unless you're doing it an awful lot. Like, why go out and get a sous vide thing? They cost a couple of $100. I literally have perfected how to do meats and steaks properly with a cast iron skillet.
Yeah, I do my sous vide for everything, and especially for fish. Like, it's just like the fish doesn't stink because it's in the plastic bag.
Yeah.
So it's.
But it's one of Marco Pierre White or Gordon Ramsay's rules, and Marco Pierre White trained Gordon Ramsay, so I don't know where the rule came from. Do not put your fish on the skillet until people are ready to sit down for dinner. That's when I start. When people come and sit at my countertop, that's when I start to cook my fish, because the fish takes literally a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Moff, you had a note there to talk about Avi Silverberg, the guy that broke the female powerlifting record. Can you chime in on that?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to bring the link up or talk a little bit about it. So
let's see if I can find it here.
There was so Avi is a coach for the the Canadian national team of powerlifting, and recently these federations have been allowing for transgender women. I can't even keep it straight. Biological men who identify as transgender women to compete in women's divisions. I know I can't even keep it straight now. So, I don't know if this is because so this is the IPF. So, USA Powerlifting just passed that there was another transgender lifter lifting as a woman from a man. And so IPF is sort of the parent federation of the USAPL. But the point is that there was this transgender lifter who essentially broke a bunch of records. The one in particular that this person broke was the all-time women's bench record.
And he actually broke the female trans record. Like this trans person here, he broke their record and pissed them off, from what I understand too, right?
Yeah, so the female trans broke the record, which is, for one, it's really not that impressive. The record that
how much did he bench?
She broke was only 275 pounds, which anybody who spends a year or two in the gym can easily do that. That's for someone that's competing in powerlifting, it's very modest numbers. Now, I don't know what the weight class is, and Big Black maybe knows or can talk a little bit more about leverages.
275 pounds, yeah.
So 275 is not I could bench that. Most people, at least 4 out of 5 people on this panel could bench that. So this guy Avi entered in another powerlifting competition, and all you had to do was say I
right?
identify and tick a box. You didn't have to do anything as far as provide any blood work. You didn't have to show any documentation, show any papers.
No surgery, no hormonal therapy,
nothing. You could still have all your appendages. Tick a box and just say I identify as a woman. They put you in the women's division, and he shattered like 8 or 9 records, including the bench record. I think he did somewhere in the realm of like 360 or 370 pounds, something like that.
So it's 375 pounds.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Shouldn't they do a chromosome check?
They don't need to. You just have to tick a box.
Why would they? You just say you're trans. You just say you're a woman. So that's the problem, right? So he just said he was a woman, shattered all these records while the transgender lifter, the former record holder, was sitting front row. And then the transgender lifter had a complete meltdown and then went on this online rant and said things like, he didn't do it in good faith, or people like me and I'm nice, so I should get to keep my records. It was this really weird sort of soliloquy about her personality and how that's why she should have. So, what's really funny to me, bringing this thing full circle, is where I've had conversations with people that identify as trans, especially it's almost always trans women that were biological men. And it's very convenient to sit here and say somebody like Avi is, oh, well, that's just a man who's taking advantage of it just to say he's a woman. But you get to just say that. Where do you get to decide that because somebody is doing something that you don't like or you don't agree with? Where do you get to decide that person is gaming the system versus that is who they say they are? Why is somebody on one hand, oh, they are who they say they are? Or if they want to use the other bathroom or use the other locker room or use a women's only gym, they are who they say they are. But the minute that they come in and start breaking your records, or they start doing things and doing maybe harm to people, you say like, oh no, that's not a real transgender person. Like, so this double-sided sort of, this double speak, right? This double standard is just, it's insane to me.
Well, I think
and hats off to Avi.
Yeah, so I think I can speak on this because that's kind of for those who don't know, Alberta is kind of the Texas of Canada. But I think I can speak to this. There's, I think, 2 things that are going on. So the first thing is that, like, a lot of women have never actually felt the strength of a man. Okay, so they see movies of like this, 110-pound chick beating up like 6 300-pound guys, and like again, it's brainwashing, similar to what we were talking about before. And they think that's the way that life works, though, right? I mean, Rich, I've told this story before about how I was at an event with a bunch of female rugby players. And I said to them, like, okay, well, let's arm wrestle. Let's put some money on it. You guys think you can beat me in an arm wrestle? And I was like, I'll give you 10-to-1 odds, $200. I'll put down 200, you put down 20. I took all their money because they actually thought they could beat me in an arm wrestle. I said, I die in an arm wrestle. So then I milked them even more. I'm like, you can use 2 hands. Let's go again.
Okay, Big Black, could you enter that same contest as Avi and become the first Black transgender or the champion? Could you do that? We should pool money together and send you there.
I would make sure I called Nike first so I could get a sponsorship from them, and then
yeah,
you probably get it.
I could do that here in the U.S. I could enter. I could enter any powerlifting competition I want.
But remember, the best troll ever is Big Black. If you do it, remember what Jim Morrison done on the Ed Sullivan Show?
No, I'm not 100 years old.
Yeah, he stuck a cucumber down his leather pants.
Okay.
So do that. Break the record as a female athlete, and have the cucumber down your shorts while you're doing it.
What's a heavy bench press for like a strong power lifter? Because 370 it's about 3 1/4 plates, right?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is Avi can do more than 370.
Yeah,
probably didn't want to hurt himself.
I've seen 4 or 5 plates on bench bars before.
Avi's probably a mid 400 plus bencher.
Right.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Kilos, that's probably
180.
No, 180 kilos is like 400 pounds. So like closer to 200, closer to 215 ish. Like 450 pounds is like 250 kilos.
Yeah.
15.
That's at
Yeah.
the top of being natural and having
Yeah.
to weightlift most of your life to be able to reach
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Whereas, like, again, somebody that lifts, like, again, your average 185 pound, 200 pound male who lifts for a year or two can easily hit a 275 bench. That's not hard.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing that was going on too was that the female or the male to female powerlifter, she was talking a lot of shit online, though, right? She was just, she was like, "Oh, I don't see why these women, why your benches all suck. Okay, put in the work." She's like, "Put in the work." And the guy's just like, "I'm not going to put up with this shit," and he just went in there and destroyed her because he's like, "Well, fuck you, though, right?"
Yeah.
She was.
Well, it's like disproportionate. Like if you take a look at women powerlifting totals, like overwhelmingly better squatters and deadlifters than they ever will be benchers, and that just has to do with their physiognomy. And that has to do with the way their bodies work. So yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Like I know women that can pull 400-pound deadlifts, but they can't bench 200 pounds. So like, yeah. So again, like it's nonsensical. It kills me.
It is.
What else
it is what it is.
What else has been happening this week that we haven't touched on?
I finally finished my car.
Oh yeah, that's right. The tune and the exhaust and everything. So are you happy with the car now, Dragos?
I'm very happy with the car. There's some smells coming out of the exhaust because some substances were used to get the pipes to all fit, and after they did a bit of welding, and they just parked my car in front of this neighbor's house, and the former car that I had was also catless and no mid pipe. So when this guy came out and saw the car and listened to the noise, he kind of he was exhausted, right? He's like, "Oh no, not again." So I think I'm gonna move the car different.
Did you say that you got it dynoed?
I didn't get it dynoed.
How much power does it have? Do they have any idea with the boost that they've added?
Yeah, it has this display because the new engine ECU units also calculate the amount of horsepower based on the amount of fuel that it uses. So it's about 650. I could have had 680, but that was kind of like pushing things. Also, I got the transmission tuned as well.
Jesus, that's in Europe. 650 in Europe is probably the equivalent of 1500 here. Just given how small things are over there.
It's a very nice car, and it's still usable. It's still a daily driver. It's still pleasant. It's still comfortable. I can have my dad drive it, and he wouldn't notice.
It's smooth still.
Yeah, very smooth.
No, that's always nice. I mean, like BMW V8s tune very easily. I've been in BMW V8s, with twin turbos that'll have 1,000 horsepower. Like my M5 had a Dynon tune that had 700 horse. And that would do like 11s down the quarter mile at 128 miles an hour. And I wasn't even using the launch control. So you can just imagine what these, like mine was a rear drive. It was the F10 model, the 2012, I think. And the new ones have all-wheel drive. They're doing like over 130 miles an hour down the quarter mile with 1,000 horsepower tunes, 135 miles an hour. They're really quick. They're incredibly fast. Like they're stupid fast. You don't need that much power in a car. Actually, yeah, you do. You kind of need that much power in a car, if I'm being honest.
What kind of vehicle is it? What is it? What model? What car are you talking about?
Mine?
Yeah.
It's an M850.
Oh, geez.
It's a convertible 2020 blue car.
Do you have a picture on your Instagram, Dragos? Can I pull it up?
Yeah. It's I think it's maybe the last picture.
Let me see if I can grab it here. 1 second. There's Dragos. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's not a sports car. That is a GT car. Very different design, build, and architecture from BMW. So you're basically turning a long haul highway Autobahn cruiser into something that's more for track use. Let me pull up the. Does it overheat? For using the boost.
For track use.
Yeah, but I mean, if you drive it hard, does the temperature ever rise? Does it ever overheat?
Nope. We did a track day on on the local track in Bucharest last year, and the only car that overheated was the M5, and it didn't have a 2.9.
Yeah, no, that's a cool car. Yeah, I like BMWs. I mean, I haven't had one for a few years. I just got tired of the reason why I got rid of my last one, guys. Like the M5 was probably my last BMW. I think I've had a bunch of M3s, and I've never had one of their trucks. But I just got tired of having to go to the dealer so often for just dumb shit. It's like every couple of months, and I still had warranty. Yeah, it's like every couple of months, a sensor, a warning light. I remember the last thing was like when I was going around corners, the rear diff would lock up. So the inside wheels and the outside wheel is supposed to turn at different speed. And there was something wrong with the sensor, and that was like a part, and I had to wait 2 weeks for the order. And it's just like stupid stuff that you don't expect when you're paying that much money for that kind of car that should run right or should run properly. But it's almost like they engineer for it to run perfectly for the warranty period. And then at some point, it's like with iPhones, how when they sell you like an iPhone, it's like it starts to get slow at point. They do like a software update when the new iPhone comes out and it starts to get slow and people get pissed off and they trade in for a new one. I don't know if that's what, the German car manufacturers are doing, but it certainly is an awful coincidence that it does happen.
I watched a Mercedes review yesterday because my brother has an E350 and he's moving and he wants to offload it. And I watched I did some in-depth research. And one of the guys pointed out that the brake pads on these models of Mercedes or this year or this period, he said, look here, when the brake pad wears down, he said that the brake pad doesn't cover the entire surface area of the rotor. So when you take it in to get your brake pads replaced, they'll show you the lip around the edge of the rotor and they go, oops, you need new rotors as well.
Too.
They designed it so that every time you need new brake pads, you need new rotors.
Yeah. We used to. So I did a mechanics co-ed course when I was in high school, and they send you to a shop to go work there to do like hands-on work. Like they actually have you do tune-ups and oil changes and brake jobs and all that stuff. So I did all that stuff, and we used to machine rotors back then. Like you take the rotor off the car and you'd put it on this lathe, and you'd machine the rotor to get it nice and smooth. They don't do that on many cars anymore. It's just buy a new rotor. If you get a brake job, it's buy a new rotor. And it's like, there's really nothing you can do about it now. That's just how they've engineered all these new cars. What else has been happening this week, guys, that we haven't touched on yet?
I guess there's this thing in Cucked, Ontario, how there's an Ontario MPP that wants to demarcate areas in which offensive remarks are illegal.
Is this the thing to do with that announcement with the wizard on the screen?
With the wizard on the screen?
Yeah, somebody broke it down. Here, I'm going to see if I can find it while you're talking about it. So just discuss it, because I think I know the one you're talking about. It's the LG plus.
There's an NDP. There's an NDP, which is pretty much the far left in Canada, and so they're talking about having a bill where, like, say that there's a drag queen story hour or something, and then within like 100 meters of this space, you're not allowed to even say anything offensive.
Here it is.
Offensive remarks will be illegal.
I found it. Let me put it up on the screen. I think this is the one you're talking about. Somebody commented on this. Was this the one?
Well, it's similar to that, and that but somebody in Ontario, they want to make they're introducing a bill so that if you were there, you tried to protest it or even say an offensive remark, it would be against the law, and you would have up to $25,000 fine for just saying something offensive.
Here's the caption to this photograph. It says a non-binary, a wizard, a witch, 2 drag queens, 2 maskers, an AWFL, I don't know what that is, a child, a disabled minority, and a cis white male just introduced legislation to make offensive remarks near drag shows a violation of Canadian law. Like, here's the wizard over here. This dude over here gave a speech at the podium talking about these shows, and it's just like this is how the Canadian government uses its resources and taxpayers' money for this stuff, right? Like, I think Max Bernier, who's who's basically opposition to all this insanity, said something online along the lines of, "Oh, I didn't know Halloween came early because it was around April 1st that they put this out." Anyway.
That's what it looks like. It looks like a joke. Every person up there's not a single strong, normal individual.
Like
it's
just
like
is.
It's for everybody not living in the U.S. and in Canada, and even for me, which I've been exposed to this medium for a long time, this is surprising, right? Like,
do you see any of this in Romania? Like anything close to this?
Dude, people still wear suits over here. Right? If you're a dignitary, if you're for an official function and you have anything less than a shirt and a suit on,
yeah, they won't take you seriously.
People look at you like the guards didn't let the one of the ministers that was coming into the building a few years ago. He was this right wing something, I don't know, green party, and he was coming with a bike to the parliament, and the guard wouldn't let him in.
Here it is. I found his caption. Did they move Halloween to April? Dude is a savage. Like, they didn't win any seats in the last election. I actually contacted them before the last election to see if I could get Max on for a podcast, and we just couldn't get it lined up. But I've got his handler, like in my contact list. So I want to bring him on for a podcast at some point to talk to him. But he's a savage. I just hope that he keeps doing what he's doing, because we need to have different voices.
There's this huge backlash in Europe over people dressing like not deciding whether they are a man or a woman or stuff like that. Like, they had this CEO of one of the banks in Switzerland, I think, that went under or had issues, and they people were starting to say like, hey, if this man cannot decide each morning if he's a man or a woman, and how can he lead this company and do these tough things and hard things and create value for the shareholders, and even provide stability for the country, right? Because he was part of a bank that was important for that country.
Did you guys hear that last week as well? Uganda passed a bill to jail, where is it here? To jail gay people. So in Canada, we have bills being passed to fine and jail people that are standing up for children and don't want them being groomed at drag shows, because right now the drag shows, they're trying to target smaller children, it seems. And on the other side of the world, in Big Black's corner of the world, they're passing bills to savage laws against.
I wouldn't go that far though.
Some
people have an issue and they cannot
man.
decide, and they're born with the type of indecisiveness, and they shouldn't be jailed for that. But it's also like, it shouldn't be out there.
Yeah.
Like, you have your own thing, do your own thing, you have your private life.
Who cares who sleeps with whomever? Is kind of what I think. It doesn't have to be in front of everyone's face.
Honestly,
like, if you like dudes,
just don't
that's
put it
cool.
in kids' faces.
Yeah, don't put. But that doesn't need to be in the kindergarten classroom.
Yeah, I think the brainwashing is what most people have a problem with. People can do whatever they want. It's just when they try to foist it onto.
Well, they know. Well, they know that, if you want to change public opinion and policy, you've got to get the youth. One, they're extremely persuadable. Like, they'll fall for just about anything. So, and two, they're going to be around longer than 40, 50-year-olds, obviously, right?
You know what causes this? Single white women.
Yep.
They are
single white women.
They are. Well, when you look at the way that you talk about the four main demographics, you have unmarried women, you have unmarried women, you have married women, you have unmarried men, you have unmarried, or let's say married men, unmarried women, married women. Married women, married men, and unmarried men all lean right by, not a huge margin, but they all tend to lean right. Unmarried women are overwhelmingly left-leaning. We go back to the brainwashing and the indoctrination. There was a woman, she was since removed. She got fired, but she removed the U.S. flag from her classroom and made kids pledge allegiance every day to the trans gay flag. They had to cover their hand over their heart and pledge allegiance to it. Yeah. So the people that sit here and say that, oh, let people do what they want. It's not bothering you. It's just so transparently absurd to sit here and say that they're not actively doing things that are trying to affect children. And there's people that go on TikTok and they're like, oh, parents log off. This one's for the kids. I'm talking to the kids. It's baffling. But yeah, it's when you leave single women to their own devices who don't have a masculine man in their life to lead them.
Yeah.
When they're left to their own devices, not only are they miserable, they have to make everybody miserable around them.
Well, that's a key point, because I mean, there's still women in marriages that don't have a masculine man that still lead the relationship, that also make these same unilateral decisions as well too. It's just it's weird, man. You hear these guys that are always like, repeal the 19th or change this and that, and it's like, okay, that if you have a time machine, sure, you can go and affect change back then, but I don't think you're going to change the course or the direction of things today. It's just, this is where we're at. This is where we're at, and this is why I tell you guys, enjoy the decline, draw a perimeter around yourself and those that you love, protect them, and it's an us versus them mentality. People always say, well, why don't you stand up and do something, Rich? Why don't you run for the PPC party, sort of thing. It's like, look, I've seen what they do. Okay. There was a clip somewhere that was passed around with his father. I think it was up in Ottawa or some school zone. Let's just, it was an Ontario school, and he had the podium for 2 minutes to have a talk about grievances that he had with the school board. And the conversation that he was raising was, I have sons and I have daughters, and I have a problem when my 13-year-old daughter goes to the bathroom and there's a boy in there with all his biological boy parts, saying that he's a female and exposing himself in the change rooms, in the bathrooms, to the girls. He goes, I was a 13-year-old boy once. I have 13-year-old sons, and I know what 13-year-olds are like with the hormones and the testosterone. And then they just cut off the mic, and he couldn't talk. They just cut him off. They're like, and then somebody came on the mic and they said something along the lines of, oh, this is harmful, or this is whatever. And they just cut him off, and they just, removed the guy. This is the narrative that the woke government wants to put out there, and it's being embraced by the majorities right now. Like I said, guys, if you want to see the direction of society, look who's in power, because even though there's arguments around, Biden didn't win, or politics or whatever, this and that, that's still who the vast majority of your colleagues, your populations, your neighbors, all decided was the one to choose. Otherwise,
he didn't even campaign. He didn't even have to.
Yeah,
the media did it for him.
Yeah,
but the thing is that it actually might even be more sinister than your government trying to control you. Like, the biggest psyop right now is TikTok, right? And that's not even our government. That's the Chinese government. Like, you think that, okay, maybe it's the government. Oh, what if it's a foreign government that's sitting there? Like, the Chinese version of TikTok is not, like, they don't have any of this transgender stuff or any of this. Like, it's it might be a lot more sinister than what you guys are talking about.
Well, Putin's talking about this a lot too, right? Whenever you've seen Putin's speeches over the last little while translated, he's also like, well, what are you guys doing over there? And you're doing harm to children. It's like, it's kind of hard to disagree with what he's saying.
Yeah, these are sexual deviants and perverts and pedophiles. It's turned into a new Catholic Church, whereas in, I'm not saying all trans people are pedophiles, but I'm saying in the public school system, at least in the U.S., over recent years, there's been more and more of that, because weirdos with no kids that want to be around kids, how do you do that? You become a school teacher. And it's not hard to be a school teacher. Most school teachers I knew coming out of college, they were idiots. They were the kids that couldn't hang in classes. They're the kids that fucked off, the kids that treated college like a 4-year vacation, didn't really know what to do, like, oh, I'll go teach children. And that was appalling to me, because I never knew that. I knew growing up that some of my teachers weren't really there IQ-wise, and then conversely, there's some really good teachers. But when I was coming out of college and saw the people that were like, oh, I'm going to go into public education, I'm like, dude, you should not be around kids. And now it's gotten even more extreme. The alphabet people picture Richie put up a second ago. I would want none of these people around my kids. They're all weird. You can tell by looking at them. It's creepy.
I'd like to add a bit of maybe a different point of view. Like, the people seem to be polarizing very much about, like, if you're not pro trans, you're against trans. And somehow this seems very wrong for me because there's a matter of degrees here. Like in Russia, you get ostracized for having a different type of orientation. In Uganda, you get killed, or I don't know, maybe worse. And it's like there are places in this world where neither of these things happen, where nobody's pro-trans, but they're neither against trans, they're neither against LGBT.
Yeah, where
whatever.
I live,
And,
they exist,
yeah,
but
yeah. I mean,
they're just there.
you can go out, you can go to a club and meet a person like this, and maybe he will think you're gay as well because you're, I don't know, friendly or smiling or whatever. And you told them, hey, listen, I don't swing that way, but you're nice, go do your own thing, and it's not an issue, and it's not a problem, and they don't get offended, and it's not like this whole manufactured what's the word called?
Outrage,
indignation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where, oh, you're not respecting my rights. I am respecting your rights. I just don't want to fuck you.
Yeah, I don't want to bang you. That's my
What it
right.
boils down to is this: it's the entire breakdown and lack of nuance and critical thinking. If you want to, when you look at history and look at persecuted groups, if you want to take at Native Americans, Blacks, Jews, what was the way when you get somebody, if you can dehumanize an entire group of people and outwardly, when you talk about that guy getting silenced at that city hall meeting or the school board meeting, when you can paint a Trump voter or somebody that does not agree or go along with the alphabet mafia, when you can say, because you voted for Trump, because you say these things, because you hold these views, you are less than human, you don't deserve to speak, you don't deserve a place at the podium, you are a transphobe, you're this, you're that, there are all these labels. That's what leads people wonder how we got to where we were in the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1880s, the 1970s. And it's because you took people and you said they're less than human. They're not even worth interacting with because of the views they hold. And that's how we get to those types of situations where you have people that are at war with one another.
And I can tell you.
And by the same token, though, I think that like there is that you said the thing to dehumanize people, but I think, to be honest, that's just a what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, well, let me just back up a little bit. So, like, I think there's no question that the people who do the drag queen story hours, they're most likely like perverts, and they're foisting that perversion onto children because, like, it's never the other way. It's never, transgenders from female to male that want to read to children. Right? Do you know what I mean? It's always the male to female, though, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting observation.
And so like that is a valid concern for a parent, right? But then somebody,
I'm talking about demonizing the other side. I'm talking about demonizing folks that don't go along with it. Because I think even if you do try to have critical thinking, if you do try to have nuance with those types of people, any sort of question is you're a transphobe, you are a bigot, you get the hell out.
So that's what I was saying, is that a parent with legitimate concerns about somebody who most likely has a perversion, so they're going to turn around and say, oh, you're just a transphobe. Oh, why are you saying that you're a transphobe? And then they're going to try and cancel you.
And I can tell you why this happens, because I had this discussion with somebody that works in the media. Like, everybody that's type of like they're vying for your attention, whether it's a radio, TV host, or TV network or something. They cling on to the polarization because that's what brings the most engagement. A rational, critical thinking type of discussion does not polarize people. Exactly. So it's boring to not hear people swearing at each other.
Yeah, if the algorithms want trans people blah, blah, blah. Or trans conflict.
So let me just chime in with this, and then we'll move on from the topic because I don't want to beat it up. It gets boring. My dad served in the Royal Air Force, and when I was a kid, we were cleaning out the basement, and I found this box of slides. I don't know if you guys remember, like, you could get your photographs, like your 35 millimeter film, converted to slides, which were basically like an encased frame, and you'd put it up on a projector with this circular thing, and it would project it up on the wall, right? So I said to my dad, what's this? He goes, oh, there's slides from my postings and all that stuff. I said, can I see them? He goes, yeah, of course. So, he loads them all up, and we start going through them, and he's showing me, his time in Singapore and Hong Kong and Malaysia and Libya and all this sort of stuff. And somewhere in Asia, I can't remember what it was. It's probably somewhere like Singapore, maybe Thailand. you know, he had some slides from a drag show. You know, he was there with his mates or at a pub because that's what they would take a lot of pictures of. And there was a lineup of what looked like women. And I thought when I was a kid that those were all women. He said, no, those are all men. I'm like, really? This is like the 60s. Okay. Like, this is not a new thing. It's, you know, people have existed in the shadows for forever. There's a book called A Billion Wicked Thoughts. It's interesting. It talks about, you know, the disgusting levels of obsessions that, you know, humans have, mostly men, for some really absurd stuff. And that happens to be one of the areas, one of the categories. Like, cool, if that's what you like and if that's what you want to immerse yourself into, fine, but just do it quietly. You know, is the way that I say it. We don't need to pass laws. We don't need to impose, you know, groom. Like, if you want to find it, right? But don't impose it onto children. Don't go to schools, you know, with these weird get-ups and try to normalize it, or remove the American flag and have your children pledge allegiance to some new weird flag that isn't aligned, you know, with the patriotic nature of a country. This stuff has been going on for a while. It's not new.
Yeah, it's not the government's job, though. And going back to the thing you mentioned, Rich, I think back in the day, didn't people kind of see it as funny? Like, it was kind of a joke?
It was comical. Like, that's the way my dad sort of, you know, explained it. It was like, you know, it was...
We know it's ridiculous.
You know, it was a show.
It's
it was ridiculous. And we would go and have a laugh at it, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But, and now it's a real identity.
Now it's like trying to be normal. Like, they're passing laws to try to like bring it more in the mainstream. It's like, come on, guys. Anyway, anything we missed this week, guys?
I'm late to join, but did you already mention like the whole attempted Trump indictment thing or whatever? And
oh, that's right, the Trump indictment.
Possibly what that's going to do for politics.
Is that still a thing? Are they still trying to?
What I'm wondering is, if that goes through, will it set the precedent for just open season for everyone to persecute their political opponents? That will be really fun. That will be the third world.
I think it's just not going to go the way they think it is. I think it's going to make him more popular, if anything.
Yeah.
Because
Elon Musk did the same thing on Twitter. He was saying, like, if Trump gets indicted and arrested, it's going to make him win the elections by a landslide.
It'll be a martyr.
Trump is a G. Like, he's not stupid. Like, he knows how to play. You know, he understands business transactions and the dynamics of public appearances. Like, the whole Stormy Daniels thing. And I haven't watched. I think Piers Morgan did an interview with her, but it's like, you really care what some old hoe is saying versus like a guy that's running businesses and house people?
That it didn't happen. I thought she came out and admitted that it was.
I haven't watched it yet, so I really can't comment on it. But it just seems like such a far stretch, considering all the stuff the Clintons have done, you know, the Biden family has done, like all these Democratic sort of like political candidates that have gotten away with literal murder. You know, and Trump touches some. You know, okay. Well, I mean,
you know, the funniest part about that is
I gotta watch it.
She has to end up paying him $600,000 because she lost her defamation case. Yeah. So she has to pay his legal fees. So she's paying him $600K.
Well, didn't he pay her to shut her mouth? Apparently,
allegedly.
she didn't follow through with her into the deal. Allegedly. Yeah, of course.
It's like the first time. He
wasn't even the president.
This is the first time when the prosecutor.
Who cares?
He wasn't even the president.
I didn't care when Clinton got a BJ.
Got blown in the Oval Office, by an intern, right? Like, and now that guy, like, everybody loves him now.
But who cares? We had an economic annual surplus under Clinton, so like, the Democrats back in the '90s are different than Democrats now. But even in the '90s, I was at the age of like, who cares if he's doing a good job and people dig him? Then I don't understand the obsession with people caring about who other people fuck, as long as they're not children. In one breath, it's like, okay,
their aggression too.
Yeah, in one breath, it's like, okay, we need to put trannies in front of children. We need to let male school administrators who identify as females into young teenage girls' locker rooms. That's completely fine. If you have a problem, you are a bigot, sir. But Trump, he banged a porn star. It's like that. Now we're outraged about that. Why don't they bring strippers into the classrooms? I would have liked that when I was in high school.
Can I get some clarity on this, because I don't follow politics and that great. So what did he do exactly that got him indicted?
Campaign finance, I think, is what they're saying. He used a campaign fund to pay her off.
Yes. Yeah. So what happened was that, allegedly he banged this porn star, And then in order to not have the news come out during the election, he told his lawyer to pay off the porn star $138,000. But you can't just write a check and put for silence money on the check, though. So what he did is that he had the lawyer pay her, and then he paid the lawyer back. But he paid the lawyer back using small, like several smaller payments, so as to not arouse suspicion.
Right.
And so that's what they're trying to get. Those 34 counts are pretty much just the same thing of him not paying. But it is a little bit absurd. Like, again, he's not going to write for porn star hush money on the check. So he said for retainer for legal fees. And they're saying it's fraud because there were no legal fees that were actually incurred. But it's just pretty much an accounting error they're trying to get him on.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
They're digging.
It's really bizarre. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what comes out of that.
The thing is that John Edwards, who was a candidate in, I think, 2000, did the same thing, and they tried to sue him. He was found not guilty of it because it's like anything that you use to benefit your campaign. Like if I went and got a haircut, is that a campaign expense? Because that's benefiting me. If I went and bought a suit, is that a campaign expense?
Yeah, well, we'll see how that unfolds. Again, it looks like it's just a ploy to sort of shut him up or disqualify him for whatever reason. I mean, if he's that much of it, like, is he really that much of a threat that they got to go through all this? I guess, we'll find out at the end of the day.
He's the face of a larger threat, going back to like the trans thing or any of these like super extremist left-leaning topics to where, okay, we need to vilify someone. Trump is a
what do they do then next? They go after
American
DeSantis?
capitalism.
Like they go after the next guy that's like the next up-and-coming Trump?
Apparently. But I think the liberals have to have Trump in the media too, because otherwise they have nothing. No one really agrees with what they're doing. But if they can vilify Trump and say, hey, okay, yeah, you might have issue with, like, for example, the trans thing, but this guy, he's a monster. He's the next Hitler. He's whatever. And they've been beating that horse with a dead stick since 2016. I think people are starting to get a little fatigued of it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we've been on for just over an hour. It's Easter weekend. You guys up to anything with family? Or are you doing anything?
The entire country shut down here, so it's chill.
Yeah,
It'll be a nice weekend.
You doing the
our
Orthodox
Easter is next week.
Yeah,
it's next week. It's 1 week later.
Cool. All right. Well, I got to get some stuff ready and on the go to get on with some fam jams. So I'll see you guys, in the private chat. We'll do another one of these next Saturday. It's always good to connect and sort of catch up on current stuff and throw a little bit of our ideas and opinions into it. Guys, thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. I'll leave in the top pinned comments some useful links you might want to check out if you're newer to the channel. See you guys later. Peace out.
Yep.